In today's episode, we discuss a high thrills attraction that may also be the most photogenic coaster in the world. Welcome to Airtime Traveler. How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the Roller Coaster History Podcast. You are listening to Airtime Traveler. My name is Nathan Grace, and I'm joined by my wife and lovely co-host.
Hey, I'm Haley Grace.
And thank you for tuning back into the podcast, or I guess tuning in for the first time. If it's your first time, I guess I can't say tuning back in because I don't know if they're new listeners or if they're been
Welcome
listening
to the
since
podcast.
Welcome
to
one and all.
Airtime Traveler.
Welcome one and all.
Kids of all ages.
No, we're not doing Disney today. I'm sorry. Well, we have to spread out the Disney coasters, right? Because if we do, 3 Disney coasters a season, then we'll, be all done with Disney by mid-season 2 or 3, and we'll never be able to talk about Disney again until they open something new. Gotta pace ourselves. If we're a little loopy, apologies. We wanted to record this. We wanted to record this an hour and a half ago, but our toddler refused to go to bed.
Yeah.
So we are doing this a little later than we anticipated, but maybe that'll make it more entertaining. We'll find out.
Well, it usually does. When we've done late episodes before, it gets interesting.
Yeah.
Real quick, especially from me.
That is true.
Yeah.
We'll see.
I don't remember
We'll see how coherent you are.
I don't remember half the conversations we have when I get this way, so it should be interesting.
Yeah. So, if this is your first time tuning into the podcast, essentially here at Airtime Traveler, we take one roller coaster and we dive into the history of that individual coaster. I am a coaster enthusiast and have been for a long time, and my wife Haley is a member of the GP, or the general public. So I am here to do the research and tell the stories, and she is here to make me more interesting. So,
yeah, I guess you could say that.
Yeah, well, that's pretty much typical for, that's not just the podcast, that's everyday life for us. So.
I feel like we say this every episode too,
Well, it should just be part of the intro now.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
I mean, that's basically when we had people over for Memorial Day. That's basically what it was. I was there to cook the food, and you were there to make me more interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Your dad tried introducing us to friends, other coaster enthusiasts too, and you're like,
I'll meet them. I haven't even met them yet.
That's true.
So he told me about them. I have not.
No, I met them.
That's true. You did meet them. That's right.
Briefly.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, it was very brief, but anyways.
Their home park was Carowinds, which is where my favorite coaster is. So certainly we'll have something.
They talked about Fury to me, so.
Well, you can't talk about Carowinds and not talk about Fury.
I haven't been there, so I wouldn't know.
Literally,
I'm really sad that I didn't go with you guys now, though.
We'll have to go back to Carowinds because literally when you
going back to Carowinds.
When you walk into the park, Fury 325 is literally like the whole entrance to the park. You walk under the roller coaster. It's kind of like Gatekeeper because the main entrance, not the entrance, but like the entry, like the bridge that you take to get up to the entrance. Fury literally goes over your head, does an element over here, and then goes under the bridge underneath you and goes back and does the rest of the layout. Weird. So you literally walk over and under the coaster to get to the entrance of the park. So
that's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
I feel like we need to get Parker and our future baby girl some roller coaster outfits to wear.
Yeah, maybe so.
I think it'd be cute. If you guys have kids, do you guys have roller coaster gear to put them in? That's our question for the day.
Based on when I went to the ACE event this weekend, I almost guarantee it because everyone, families included, everyone was just decked out in roller coaster gear. Whether it was stuff they bought at the parks or stuff they made at home or some of both, like everyone was decked out and And it wasn't even just Worlds of Fun stuff. It was Silver Dollar City and Kings Island and Cedar Point and Disney World and Epcot and like Knott's Berry. Like it was everything. Like it was all over the place.
I feel it. We're gonna do it now.
So
our like little 1-month-old baby at Silver Dollar City is gonna be decked out.
Maybe so.
No, it will be a thing.
It might be too cold when we at the Ace event to bring the baby. I don't know. Last year when they did the event, it snowed and they couldn't ride anything. So you never know. November's weird for this part of the country.
When did we go though with the Paulsons? It was a weird time that it was supposed to be cold, but it was like really warm, and it ended up having a tornado instead.
It was
definitely during Christmas because the lights were up.
Yeah, you're right. So it would have been November. So but then also this past November we also went and the weather was perfect that day. So like I said, November weather very strange for this part of the country. So
that's true.
Anyway, all that aside, I don't even remember what we were talking about, but that's our introduction to the podcast. So let's jump into today's topic. I don't have any news or updates to really cover. So, I guess one thing I will say before we jump in, be sure to go and follow us on social media. And the reason I bring that up now is because if you go and follow us on Twitter or Instagram, I'll post pictures that go along with today's episode. So you can kind of follow along and see some of the pictures that I'll be showing Haley throughout the episode. Just, if you want, more visuals to look at as you were going through the topic today, obviously you can't put that in an audio recording, so we put it over on our socials so that you can go and look at that. So Twitter will have pretty much everything that I'm showing her. Instagram, I'm limited to 10 images. So if you want to see everything, go to Twitter. If you don't mind seeing just most of it, go to Instagram. And be sure to go follow along there.
I think the only news that I saw that is somewhat coaster related is Splash Mountain closed in Anaheim. So their last ride was either today or yesterday. So
something like that. Also, I think since the last time we recorded was when between then and now was when the Zambezi Zinger delay happened. So I think I'll talk more about that when my sister and I are gonna do a Worlds of Fun trip report because since Haley was pregnant, she decided not to come, but my sister came with me to spend time with me, obviously, but also to keep me awake on the long drive back from Kansas City at 2 a.m.
Something like that.
So, but she and I had a lot of fun, so we'll do that trip report, and I'll share some of my thoughts on that delay because I've chilled out now, but I was pretty upset about it the day that it happened. So, but anyway, that's we'll talk about that later. So, be sure to keep an eye out. I think we'll have a Dollywood trip report coming next week. So I would keep an eye out for that Worlds of Fun trip report maybe the week after that. But anyway, if you follow us on Spotify or wherever you are listening, you can be notified whenever we post a new episode. That way you don't miss out when we post those trip reports. So
okay.
All right. Well, let's jump into today's topic.
With 2 feet.
We are going back to Silver Dollar City, our home park, and
which we haven't been to this year, which I think is so funny.
We haven't been to Silver Dollar City.
Well, we bought our passes.
We bought our passes in November when we upgraded
to season passes,
and that was the last time we went. But we got pregnant between now and then, and that's kind of thrown a wrench into our plans. It still worked out well, and it still worked it out because part of why we got the passes was so that we could use them to get the discounts at Dollywood and Kentucky Kingdom, which is still happening.
Yeah,
so
you're going to Kentucky Kingdom.
Yeah, but I think for sure we're going to go for Moonlight Madness, and we're going to go for, during the Christmas season, probably go to the Ace event at the beginning of November. So we'll make use of the season passes.
I'd love to go during the fall too, but I'll be really pregnant at that point. So
that's true. Well, we'll also have to, because it would be really cool to go when the leaves start to change. Like, it gets really pretty that time of year. So anyway,
it'd be cool.
We haven't talked Silver Dollar City on the podcast, at least haven't done an episode of Airtime Traveler since our inaugural episode number 1, talking about Powder Keg. So it's been a long time since we've done a Silver Dollar City coaster. Mostly because I'm trying to spread them out the same way I'm doing with Disney, because I don't want to just use up all the Silver Dollar City coasters in 2 seasons. But so today we are going to be talking about Wildfire. So I know Haley has her opinions on Wildfire.
I do. I mean, honestly, it's a great coaster except for the restraints, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But
yeah,
yeah. I mean, I don't really. If the restraints were different, I like it. If that's plain and simple.
Yeah, Haley has a hard time with the B&M over the shoulder restraints. So pretty much any time there's a coaster that has those restraints, she is most of the time skipping out on it. But
I'll try it like one time. And
yeah, she's been on. That's true. You will do it most of the time. You'll do it at least one time.
Right.
And so, like, you did Dominator at King's Dominion, and you did Great Bear at Hershey Park. Yep. I don't think you did Rougarou at Cedar Point, but
I wasn't feeling that great.
Yeah,
though.
You were
already getting into it.
So it was kind of, and we knew we were going to ride Millennium Force right afterwards. So I think you were like, I'd rather ride that without a headache.
Right.
So, I'm trying to think if there's any others at the parks we've been to. I don't think so, because Kings Island, they don't. It's just the best restraints on Banshee. Kennywood doesn't have anything. And then he didn't go to Carowinds, so Afterburn wasn't a concern. So anyway, so just a few that you've been on, Wildfire being included. So I will preface this episode by saying this is the most difficult episode to do research for since the podcast started.
I wonder why.
So there's kind of, I feel like 2 things that are going on here, because one, Wildfire, any coasters that are like in the early 2000s and kind of maybe even the late 90s, but definitely early 2000s, kind of falls into this weird gray area where newspapers are starting to become less and less of a news source, and so newspapers aren't really covering things as much as they used to.
But the social media.
But at the same time, the internet is really brand new. So if I try to look up articles from 20 years ago online, they don't have anything anymore. The website doesn't exist, or the pictures aren't there anymore. So it's like this weird gray area where everyone just decided in 2000, by 2010, everyone's like, oh, the 2000s, we don't need all that stuff anymore. And now it's just
cassettes.
Well, and I tried so hard. I contacted the park. I contacted the park manager. I contacted other websites that I knew were at some of the events and some of the, whatever. I contacted so many people and nobody responded. So I'll just say I can't wait till we're a bigger podcast and I can finally get some of these people to respond to me, because I know they've got stuff. I know. And I'll show you later. I know the park has some stuff.
Watch us release this and Silver Dollar City come back and be like...
Well, and that's a good point. If we release the episode and I post all the pictures I do have, and then maybe a week or 2 from now I get some stuff, I'll make sure to post that on social media.
Their marketing team's pretty good. I feel like they would be easier to get in contact with.
Well, that's who I reached out to.
Oh, and they still didn't reach out to you.
Mm-mm.
That's weird.
Yep,
They're usually pretty good about reaching out to their public. So
because I tried reaching out to them for the Powder Keg episode too, when I was still kind of fairly new at this. And they didn't respond, but at that point we only had like
a couple
3 or 4 followers. And, now we've got a little bit more of a following, and so I thought maybe it'd have a little traction, but no, nothing doing.
That's a bummer.
So, anyway, the most important part for me is not necessarily that I have all of this right now. It's just I like having it because I think it's important to preserve, and, anyway, we'll get into it. Let's talk the coaster, and We'll talk more about this when it becomes applicable based on, the script I've got here. Anyway, opened in 2001, $14 million. It's 3,073 feet long. It's 120 feet tall, but it does have a 155-foot drop just because it's built into the terrain, like everything at Silver Dollar City is. Mm-hmm. Top speed of 66 miles per hour. In the CoasterBot rankings, it ranks at number 110 in the country, so not too shabby. I think it was in the top 100 last year, so it's falling a little bit year after year. It ranks below coasters such as Incredible Hulk at Universal's Islands of Adventure, Kumba at Busch Gardens Tampa, and Dominator at King's Dominion. It ranks above coasters such as Hydra the Revenge at Dorney Park, Rougarou at Cedar Point, and Batman the Dark Knight at Six Flags New England. Out of the Silver Dollar City coasters, it ranks 4th. So Outlaw Run is number 1, followed by Time Traveler.
Still crazy to me.
The Outlaw Run is number 1.
I don't know. I like Outlaw Run better than Time Traveler, but I figured the enthusiasts would pick Time Traveler over Outlaw Run.
It is an interesting thing. Like, Time Traveler is a one-of-a-kind experience in the country. Mm-hmm. But I think people just love RMC. Mm-hmm. Like, if it's RMC, it's automatically my favorite. Like I've been seeing people rave about Wildcats Revenge over the past couple days. And so, it's interesting. So I think a lot of people would say Silver Dollar City has a great 1-2 punch, per se. That, you have the one-of-a-kind spinning coaster and Time Traveler, and then you have the record-breaking RMC wooden coaster and Outlaw Run. So you've just got a great little setup there between those two coasters. So, but and then Powder Keg comes in at number 3. Powder Kegs, I think, is in like the low 90s in the Coaster Bot rankings. So not too much ahead of Wildfire. Essentially, you have. If you're looking at the Coaster Bot rankings, I would say you have like 2 A+ coasters and then like 2 B+ coasters is kind of how it shakes out for those 4. So I would say differently, but based on other enthusiasts, that's kind of what their opinion is. A review of the name, I think it's a solid name, so it's not bad. Review of the logo. So this is like the main logo that's on like the sign as you're like walking. There's like a big sign, but as you're heading up that really long path up past American Plunge. But this ride has like 8 different logos.
I was gonna say, that doesn't look familiar.
So this is the one that's on the big sign on the archway. But then if you go and like get the Nano coaster in the gift shop, there's a different logo on that. And then if you're sitting on the ride, there's like a gate in front of the coaster that has a different logo on that. And then if you look at the press releases when they announced it, it has a different logo on that. So it's like
almost like
there's so
all
many
these artists came together and they're like, well, we bought all these renditions together. Which one do we like the best?
Yeah,
all of them.
They like sent out a thing to like 8 different graphic designers and they sent them all back and you're like, I can't decide. Just put that one there and that one there and this one over there. And
sounds good.
So this one was my favorite one, so that's why I went with this one. But,
really? Why is it your favorite?
I don't know. This one, because it's on the big sign that like you walk under before you're walking up to the coaster. This one is kind of the one that, if I think of what the logo is, this is the one that sticks in my mind, not some of the other ones. So
okay.
Let's see. Review the paint scheme. I think it's a very good paint scheme. It contrasts well with the green trees in the summer. It's very easy to see the coaster.
No, but in the fall, it's really hard to see.
It does kind of blend in.
It's very hard
now,
to see. Now,
something that I don't even know if you may have picked up on this, but some people might not know. The Airtime Traveler logo is actually based off of Wildfire. Because if you look at it, the circle is the maroon color and then the rails is the silver color. It's when I had the logo designed, that Wildfire is what I had in mind. So yeah. So there you go. That's a little fun fact for you. I like the color, and it's not my favorite. Oh yeah, you got the logo right there, so you can kind of see what we were going for.
I can see it.
So the logo and the name of the podcast was, both of those together was kind of a nod to Silver Dollar City, since that's our home park. Time Traveler obviously kind of spurred the name on. And then with the Wildfire being the actual coaster track in the logo. So There you go. And yet the park still won't respond to me when
Come on.
And Kings Island followed the podcast.
We love Silver Dollar
They don't
City.
even follow us on Twitter, and Kings Island does. What's up with that? So, all right.
So lame.
I'm not bitter.
We need to redesign our logo.
We'll put a Ryan track on there instead.
Yep.
Oh, man. That's all right. We'll get there.
We'll give them some slack. Maybe a couple weeks, but that's it. That's all they get.
Review of the trains. I like the trains. My favorite part of the trains is actually the blue on the trains. I've never been crazy about painting coaster trains the same color as the track.
Yeah, they kind of...
I almost wish the whole train was that blue color. I think that would look really nice, but the trains aren't bad. So, obviously, we've talked about the restraints. We're not crazy about them. We would love if they put the vest restraints on there, even though we know they never will. Here's the park's description of the ride.
Love the kids' faces in this.
Yeah, he is having a great time.
He is not having a great time.
Well, he is. He might be. Who knows?
He looks petrified. You can't even see that kid behind the tall guy.
Oh, wait. Oh, this one.
Yeah.
This is this tiny kid behind this huge tall guy, and you can't even see him.
Reminds me of, like, Levi or something.
Yeah, exactly. Inventor... actually, I'm going to skip this because we'll talk about the story of the ride later. Silver Dollar City's Wildfire is a high-flying, multi-looping Cobra rolling coaster that will leave you breathless, traveling at speeds up to 66 miles per hour.
You're doing it wrong.
What? Oh. Traveling at speeds up to 66 miles per hour. Wildfire features a vertical drop of 15 stories, followed by 5 inversions, including a full loop, Cobra roll, corkscrew, and a high-speed spiral.
You're such a dork.
Get ready to fly.
Oh my gosh.
It was your idea.
It is my idea. Okay, so if you're new here, this has kind of been a running joke between Nathan and I. The first couple episodes, he always did the description in that voice.
It wasn't even season 1. It started in season 2. I don't even remember. Probably in the Gatekeeper episode, I guess.
But I was laughing at him, and so I was like, now it needs to be
I just felt like it had these descriptions are just so intense. They need that. That movie trailer voice.
So now it's a thing now.
There you go.
So anytime he does it wrong, I have to remind him.
Sorry, that's my bad.
Yeah, it is your bad.
But here's everyone's favorite part. Let's look at customer reviews. I will say, people love this coaster. It had a 4.8 rating on Google reviews. There were no 1-star reviews.
Wow.
None.
Wow.
So that was interesting. 2 stars. Wildfire is still fine. It's just getting a little bit old. Especially the ride is more bumpy, and it shakes you back and forth to the point where I'm thinking I might get a concussion.
Oh.
I think Haley kind of feels that way too.
Yeah.
It is a little bumpy. It's not as smooth as it used to be.
And again, it wouldn't even be the bumpiness. It's just because I'm shorter, like my head rattles around in the shoulder restraints.
And the only part I specifically remember hitting my head on the over-the-shoulder restraints is sometimes during the Cobra roll and definitely in the corkscrew. So, but the Immelman and the vertical loop generally are totally fine. So, here's 2 stars, all caps, too hyper for me. All right, then.
You're too hyper for you.
It's a very hyper comment.
Okay, well, that's what I'm saying. It's like if you put your comment in all caps saying too hyper for me, you're too hyper for yourself, my friend.
3 stars. Don't get me wrong, this ride is solid, but it's for sure incredibly overrated. The first drop does not give airtime, unlike what most enthusiasts say, and it's not very forceful compared to some other B&M loopers. Still, it's a fun ride and the setting is great, but it was the only true disappointment of my otherwise excellent day at Silver Dollar City.
I mean, that's a fair review.
Yeah, this is not
very descriptive.
Very descriptive and pretty, yeah.
He has to be an enthusiast.
Oh, he is. Based on the name and how many reviews, he definitely seems like a level-headed enthusiast for the most part.
Maybe this is what we need to do, is get reviews. And
what's funny is when I read this review, I thought about, I was like, I wonder if we, not right now, but at some point in the future, are we going to get to a point that people leave ridiculous reviews just to get our attention?
I just had had the best idea.
Oh, dear.
We need to have an episode where that's all we do. Is go
just
and
reviews?
leave. No, like
leave
leave reviews.
Oh, no.
Come on, that'd be so much fun.
What, leave bad reviews?
No, just like leave reviews.
Leave honest review? Like, so we'd leave an honest review, not a ridiculous review like the ones that.
But if we feel like it was ridiculous, then we can leave that.
What's funny is the coaster I would most love to do that for is Grizzly at King's Dominion, but they just retract and made. I've heard it's so much better than it used to be. So that's like the one coaster I used to love to hate on, and now I can't even do that anymore.
Which one would I hate on? Probably Thunderation at Silver Dollar City. How dare you?
How dare you? There's got to be ones that you've. I'm trying to think. If you had gone on Magnum with my dad and I at Cedar Point, that would certainly be one you would hate on. Because that one was so painful.
I think Sky Rush too at Hershey.
Yeah, Sky Rush a little bit.
I think it's overrated, but
yeah, I get that.
And then anyway. Sky Coaster, was it Sky Coaster? Or
Skyrocket at Kennywood.
That one's overrated
too.
It's
a letdown.
There we go. There's my 3 reviews.
There you go. 4 stars. Awesome ride, but the only elements are loops. I mean, first of all, it's a looping coaster, so that's kind of the point. Second of all, I'm not sure if
I guess if you don't know that, then.
But if it has I don't know. I guess he's just saying it doesn't have airtime. I don't know. The drop was long, but not steep enough to make it overbearing.
Why would you want it overbearing?
Overbearing? I've never heard of that term used.
I want it to be
overbearing. Like, oh my gosh. I rode Orion yesterday and that drop was overbearing, man. What is that? Oh. 4 stars, a really fun ride. Try it with your eyes closed and with them open. Very smooth ride.
Ride it twice. Once with your eyes
closed and once open. I don't think I've ever...
one eye closed and one eye open.
Oh, that just sounds nauseating. I don't think I've ever been on a coaster and just closed my eyes the whole time.
Not intentionally.
I don't think I ever have. That's a
kind of blacked out one,
yeah. Rip Ride Rocket.
Yeah. So
I guess that counts.
I kind of closed my eyes a little bit.
4 stars. Fun. Be prepared to scream or hear screaming.
Didn't you close your eyes whenever you rode something 360 and like at King's, the one, not 360, really tall one that.
Oh, Diamondback?
No, at King's Dominion.
Intimidator 305?
Yeah. And then you were like, it was raining. And so,
no, that was Diamondback at Kings Island.
That's right. And you were like...
I mean, I was squinting. I wasn't closing my eyes.
You should have just closed your eyes. It's a whole new experience.
But it's my first time riding. I didn't want to miss out. That was a bad decision to make that my first time on Diamondback. This is hilarious to me. Be prepared to scream or hear screaming. I think every coaster. Well, yeah, I was thinking every coaster you should be prepared to hear screaming, unless you're the only one on the ride, I guess.
I feel like if you don't hear screaming, there's something wrong.
Yeah, it's definitely weird. That would be weird. 4 stars. The drop is fun. The loops are fun. Okay, well, it's
I feel like if
short and sweet.
We just take Ben with us on the roller coasters, then you'll hear screaming.
Well, you won't go on them, though.
No, he won't.
5 stars. The best, smoothest ride. It's been my favorite roller coaster for years, and the mountaintop views are wonderful. Ride it at sunset and watch your beautiful horizon go from right side up to upside down and round and round.
Wow.
Woo!
I mean, I do agree that sunset is a really great time to go on that ride.
We'll talk about that later for sure. Yeah. This intro is really long, so I'm going to skip that one and go to this last one. Rode this with a friend a few years ago. It was the absolute best roller coaster I have ever ridden. Upside down as much as you are right side up. Laughed the entire ride so I didn't scream and lose my voice. Sitting in front, nothing but rails in front of you is the best. Fantabulous with like 28 exclamation marks.
It's a lot.
Fantabulous. There's our reviews of Wildfire. Let's talk about the history of Wildfire at Silver Dollar City. So let's hop in our time machine, and we're going to go back to 1993. All right, 1993. Typically, we go a lot further back than this, but again, there's not a lot to... Couldn't find very much for Wildfire, so we'll do what we can here. I wish there was more history here, and certainly the park would have helped me out if they'd given me more.
Come on, Silver Dollar City.
But don't worry, we've got enough for a full episode here. So
slackers.
I don't think they're slackers. I think they just still think I'm too small to consider.
They're slacking.
They're going to revoke our season passes, Haley. You have to be nice to them.
Imagine them doing
that. Would be so dumb. That'd be so rude. All right, so Silver Dollar...
Not allowed back. We're kicking you out for good.
So in the early 90s, Silver Dollar City had kind of dwindled in popularity among families, and we talked a little bit about this during our Powder Keg episode. Really they only had Fire in the Hole and a few other rides. It was mostly just a kind of a shopping center at that point. But in 1993, they would open Thunderation. And that would be met with lots of praise. It was, a great addition to the park and, really kind of set this precedent that Silver Dollar City could actually be an amusement park rather than just a shopping center. With the great success of Thunderation, that kind of spurred the park on to continue to make additions to the park. So in 1997, they would add Geyser Gulch, followed by Splash Harbor in 1998. And then, as we talked about in our Powder Keg episode, they would open Buzzsaw Falls in 1999. So, the late 90s, they're just cranking things out over at Silver Dollar City. And,
I remember my dad talking about, going, when it was still, super shoppy. And so, anyways.
Yeah. And, if you haven't had a chance to go and listen to our Powder Keg episode, there's definitely more information there to kind of talk about Buzzsaw Falls and how that all went down. But just brief summary here. Buzzsaw Falls had a lot of technical issues, and almost immediately after Buzzsaw Falls opening, park officials were already looking into what their next big investment was going to be for the park. So, they were cranking things out in 97, 98, 99, and now they're already looking at what's coming next. So, based on a newspaper article I read, I don't have it here to quote from, but essentially they were just asking guests, what how are you feeling about the park? What would you want next? They were really just getting a lot of feedback from guests. And so they saw a trend that a lot of people were saying they just wanted bigger, better, and faster rides, which makes sense. I mean, you add a coaster in 93, you add a coaster in 99. Meanwhile, the coaster industry is blowing up in the late 90s. You're right in the middle of the coaster wars, essentially. And so that's what, these people that are visiting the park are seeing. They're seeing all these other massive roller coasters open. So that's going on in the late 90s. And then elsewhere in the amusement industry, B&M looping coasters were becoming really popular. So they were just popping up left and right all over the place. Some of them were their standing coasters. Some were their inverted coasters, which were really popular. And then sort of in the late 90s, B&M's floorless model was a lot more popular than their regular sit-down model. So their floorless models like Dominator and King's Dominion, where basically you would sit down, but then the floor on the station kind of, lowers and moves out of the way. And then once you get on the coaster, there's nothing underneath your feet. Meanwhile, the sit-down coasters, there was only 2 of them that were built at this point. So in 1990, actually I've got it right here. There you go. So 1993, Kumba would open at Busch Gardens, Tampa. And then 1999, Incredible Hulk would open at Universal Islands of Adventure.
Which both are still open, right?
Yep, both are still open. I have not been on Kumba, but I have been on Incredible Hulk when we went to Universal a few years back. And I did not,
because of that.
No, because you had been on...
The rest of the day.
That was the same day you had gone on Rip Ride Rocket, and we got it over to the other side of the parking. You're like, I'm done.
I'm done with roller coasters today. I think the only other ride that I rode was like the one in Harry Potter World.
Yeah, you went on Escape from Gringotts.
That was it.
But,
I was like, I'm done.
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
it was a rough day for me.
And that may have even been a different day that we did Escape from Gringotts. I can't remember. So yeah, both of these are still open. But then, as far as floorless coasters are concerned, Medusa would be the first one to open at Six Flags Great Adventure in 1999, and 4 more of them would open in 2000, and 6 more of them over the next 4 years after that. So they were just cranking these coasters out. Now, B&M, they're building these really impressive coasters that are, being bought by lots of parks. But B&M is considered, back then and still today, is considered the most expensive of all the coaster manufacturers. They're kind of, the best way I can put it is they're kind of the Ferrari of the roller coaster industry. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean it's the best or the fastest. Like, you can still buy cars that, like, some people still prefer a Lamborghini over a Ferrari, right? But or a Porsche or whatever. But it is pretty much far and away the most expensive roller coaster manufacturer. And just to kind of show that off, so these are 2 coasters that were built in 2000. So this is Kraken at SeaWorld Orlando, which was built by B&M. And then this is Millennium Force at Cedar Point, which you've been on. Now, which was built by Intamin. Both built in 2000. Kraken was it was like 18 to 20 million, so I just went for $19 million, which comes out to like $4,548 per per foot of track. And then Millennium Force was 25 million, which comes out to $3,790 per foot of track. So this big, massive first,
difference.
Yeah, well, and it's the first 300-foot coaster ever constructed was less expensive per foot of track than a B&M looping coaster that opened up at SeaWorld the same year. So it's just kind of interesting to see that, like, they serve different purposes, because B&M is notorious for being extremely smooth and very reliable, where Intamin is more willing to push the boundaries and do 300-foot coasters before anybody else. But they have been notorious for also having downtime, and sometimes they have a little bit of a rattle. So it's just kind of what your preference is, right? Do you want something that's going to be reliable and smooth, or do you want something that's going to push the envelope and break records? So that's kind of where we're at this point. So because B&M is so expensive, they built 31 coasters in the U.S. from 1990 to 2000. 28 of those went to Six Flags, Cedar Fair, or SeaWorld parks, the 3, really big roller coaster chains. The other 3, 2 of them went to Universal Studios, another big chain, and then the only other one was Great Bear at Hershey Park, which Hershey Park is the largest, like, what's the word I'm looking for? They're
amusement park?
No, they're not the largest amusement park, but the largest, not privately owned, but like the largest standalone park that's not part of a chain, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So you're really only seeing B&M being purchased by big chains, and the one instance is Hershey Park, which is the largest standalone park.
But Hershey's got money to
burn. Certainly. Well, and that's why, I say that they're the largest standalone park in the country that's, not part of a chain, and that's, you definitely see that even today.
Okay, I'm kind of curious, and this is a little bit off topic, but like, what other company could pull off something like Hershey? Like, Hershey's got a ton of money to spare. They own a lot of different company brands, so like they have the money to put into a park. But like, what other company?
Well, I mean,
Walmart. Dude, Bentonville could get their own coaster park.
I don't trust Walmart to even keep their website running, let alone to own. Well, the problem isn't that there's the money aspect. There's plenty of hundreds of companies that have the money to do this. The problem is getting people that are passionate about it and putting it in the right place. Because Six Flags had a park that was in Houston, and then they shut it down. And then there was a park in New Orleans, and that got destroyed by Katrina, and it's never opened since. So, like, there's big cities that feel like they should have an amusement park and just don't because it didn't work for some reason. Right. So, location is a really tricky thing when it comes to amusement parks, and marketing is more important than anything. So
Bentonville is growing quite quickly.
I mean, it is, but I mean, with Silver Dollar City only an hour and a half away, it really would be hard to compete with that. So maybe I would say it would more than likely be more successful if it was in southern Arkansas, because then you get a little bit of a pull from the Dallas area. But anyway, Branson's where all of our tourism is. Here we just get museums. So
art museums.
Yeah, art museums and that's pretty much it. Art museums and the Walmart Museum.
Bike trails.
And bike trails, yes, absolutely.
That's about it. There's our roller coaster. Learn how to ride a bike.
So anyway, so B&M built 31 coasters. All of them are at major parks, right? They're either 30 of them are at chain parks, and then one of them is at Hershey Park, which is also huge. So it was a shock when on July 20th, 2000, Silver Dollar City announced that they would be building a massive 5-inversion looping coaster manufactured by B&M. The $14 million coaster would be named Wildfire. Here's some renderings from the park. These are not great, but again, this is all I can find online because the park won't give me anything. So this is from a newspaper. This was from an old publication online from 2000. So certainly these renderings were better when they first were released. But
right.
So this would be the first time that B&M would work outside of a major chain other than Hershey Park. So for Silver Dollar City, which at this point only had 3 roller coasters, but one of them was Fire in the Hole, which is,
one drop.
No, it has 3 drops.
You're right.
Yeah, 3 drops. But it's, it was built in 72? Yeah, it was built in 72, so it's old by this point. And then they had just built 2 roller coasters, but one was a mine train coaster, which is fine. That's like a mid-tier coaster. And the other one was a prototype that didn't even work right. So for them to come to the most expensive coaster manufacturer was, kind of shocked everybody. Here's the announcement from the park. Silver Dollar City is announcing a multi-loop roller coaster with 5 inversions, taking speed travelers into yesteryear, yet on a ride designed with today's thrill seekers in mind. The multi-million-dollar Wildfire, the largest ride ever in the park's 4-decade history, is scheduled to open spring 2001. So then it goes to talk more about the layout, but we'll talk about that later. Now, when the park was making a decision on what model they wanted to go with, I guess the park officials literally went all over the country just riding coasters from all over the place, which sounds like the best job ever.
Yeah, that'd be something you would totally
to just travel the country riding coasters and then using that to decide what kind of coaster you want to build.
You're in the wrong business. You really are.
No, I'm in the right business for our family. So, because
in your next life, that will be.
There you go. I would love to just get paid to go around riding roller coasters, but that would require me to be an engineer, which would require me to be good at very sophisticated math, which I am not. So yes, I am in the right career.
Excel spreadsheets that do the math for you. So.
Yeah, I don't think they're using Excel to build roller coasters.
All right, sir, you go ahead and build the Excel spreadsheet for Wildfire.
So I guess the park had considered a stand-up coaster, but ultimately decided that sit-down models were more family-friendly, which I am glad they went that route. Can you imagine if Wildfire was a stand-up coaster? No. My gosh. They also considered inverted and floorless models, but both of those models require a dropping floor in the station. So they decided against those to cut down on cost. Now, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. So, okay. The floorless coaster was also nixed because park officials felt that having a floor on the train would kind of not fit in with the story, which we'll talk about the story in a few minutes. All that being said, park officials did like the feeling of having your feet dangle below you like a floorless coaster, but they wanted the train to actually have a floor on it for the purposes of the story. So the train that they designed for Wildfire is actually completely unique to that ride. So you can look, it's kind of a hybrid between the typical B&M sit-down models and the B&M Hyper models. So this is Kumba at Busch Gardens, which we talked about briefly earlier. Mm-hmm. And you can see they've got their feet on the floor. There's also a little step that they have to kind of go over to get into the coaster. And then this is this is a B&M Hyper Candemonium, which you've been on.
Right.
Where it's completely open. Your feet dangle a little bit below you, but there's still a floor that you walk on. And then, so kind of looking at the combination of the two of those, you kind of get Wildfire, where you have completely open, there's no walls on the side of the coaster, there's a floor beneath you, but the seats are actually tilted back a little bit so that your feet still dangle, even though there's a floor, which the floor also makes it easier it makes dispatching faster.
Now, let me tell you, it's hard to get out of these chairs.
It is hard to get out because you kind of have to
scoot your booty up. So, let me tell you, as a short person, it's extra hard. I'm like, I almost have Nathan help me get out of it every time.
Yeah. So there is that, but that is something I did not know before this episode, is that the trains on Wildfire are completely unique. No other coaster B&M built has these trains. So
there you go. You learned something.
I tell you every time we do an episode that I learned something new. I'm not just a white walking roller coaster encyclopedia.
I think you are.
To you, it might seem that way, but put me in a room of enthusiasts, and I'm a dum-dum. So
you're not a dum-dum. You almost won the little.
But that's the thing. I almost won. I did not win. I was one off.
Oh my gosh.
So we'll talk about that during our Worlds of Fun trip report. We'll talk about the trivia that they did. So let's see. Construction started in April of 2000, but nobody knew about it because that part of the park didn't exist yet. Like, it was out in the woods where nobody could see it. So it had started in April, and there were rumors about something coming, but there was nothing, nobody could even see it happening until...
Silver Dollar City, I feel like, is pretty good at hiding stuff whenever they do construction.
Well, it's pretty easy when there's so many trees, you can just kind of hide it. True. So sometimes they can't. The coaster they're building right now, everybody knows that there's a coaster coming.
Well, and Mystic River, there was no hiding that.
Oh yeah, right out in the open. So, let's see. I've got another article here. So this is from the marketing director at the time. She says, we're already telling people how unique it is. This will expand the appeal to families and give them more things to do. This is the first time we're so far ahead in the planning stages we can do fun things in the park. We'll have peepholes for people to view the construction and help pique their interest. So this was kind of a weird thing. It says there are 26 rides and attractions at Silver Dollar City. Wildfire will be the 9th major ride. I don't know what their criteria was for quote-unquote major ride. So, because I was thinking about it, I was like, okay, because I'm trying to think early 2000s. There would have been this would be the fourth roller coaster. I guess American Plunge, Lost River of the Ozarks. I think Waterboggen was open by then. The train? That leaves one more, so I don't know what that 9th one, I guess, that they're talking about, but there you go. So 9th major ride.
Yeah, that train, man. I mean, it derailed, so...
This also talks about Worlds of Fun at the bottom, and it says the Mamba is faster, but they spelt Mamba wrong. It spelled it M-O-M-B-A.
It's the Mom coaster.
It's the Mamba.
It's the mom of all coasters. That's my kind of coaster.
I just had to.
That's a Mother's Day.
I saw that and I just had to include
it was for Mother's Day.
Oh, is that what it was? When this was July, I think they're a little late.
Just a little bit late.
Or maybe they're early. Very early. They also had this little model at the park for people to look at, which I think more parks should do this.
Oh, yeah.
This is really cool. Nowadays, they just do renditions and POV videos on YouTube, but this is cool to see like a physical model that they had at the park. And I actually
would love something like that.
I want to know where this is now. Who has this?
The Coaster Museum.
Maybe, but these are literally the only pictures I could find. And so I'm like, is this in the vault at Silver Dollar City?
Want it.
Or did
Gimme.
did they sell it to someone? I don't know. I want to know where this is because this would be super cool to just have that as a piece in your house or something. Can you imagine?
Oh my gosh, where would we put it?
In here.
No. We already have talked about this.
Honestly, if we had enough money to buy this, we would not be living in this house, so it doesn't matter anyway. Also, you notice here, look what they call this element right here.
Hoop Dee Doo.
The Hoop Dee Doo. What is a Hoop Dee Doo? Well, because they're not talking about the Cobra roll, because you can see in this one, here's the label for the Cobra roll right here. So, are they...
Sorry, I touched it.
Are they talking about this little drop that goes under the bridge before you go into the chain lift? That's the only thing.
That's their Hoop Dee Doo, man.
The Hoop Dee Doo is the little drop that goes under the bridge.
The little, I don't know, it could be even this platform is this Hoop Dee Doo.
That doesn't make any sense, though.
You do the Hoop Dee Doo on the platform.
When I looked up Hoop Dee Doo, literally the only thing that came the only thing that came up was a show at Disney World. Actually,
wow!
I think it's called like the Hoop Dee Doo Review or something like that.
What?
I have no idea what that is. By the way,
that's what they do the Hoop Dee Doo right there.
I have no. It's the funniest thing. I was just like Hoop Dee Doo. What the heck is that?
Hoop Dee Doo.
So
what do these ones say?
Well, this one's makes sense because it says the straight drop. I'm guessing that says something about this banked turn at the end. This says Immelman here, and that says loop. So everything else makes sense. Hoop Dee Doo, that is completely out of left field. I have no idea what that is.
All right, Hoop Dee Doo.
Hoop Dee Doo. Here's a pamphlet that, like when you go to Branson and they have like those big old things in like every restaurant you go to with like 100 pamphlets.
Yep.
This was the Silver Dollar City pamphlet for 2001, just advertising Wildfire. So construction proved to be more difficult than they anticipated, largely due to the terrain. Makes sense. I guess B&M coasters typically require a 250 or 300 ton crane to construct. And because of the terrain, Silver Dollar City had to resort to using two 80 ton cranes because they just couldn't get the large crane to the construction site. They just physically could not get it there. So that's kind of interesting. I guess the park posted regular construction updates on their website, but using Wayback Machine, I can't get any of the photos to load. And this is what I tried to contact the park about. Like, maybe they don't have them. Maybe they don't have the construction photos. Maybe they're lost to the internet or whatever. Weird. But I would be surprised. I literally cannot find any Wildfire construction photos. I spent hours scouring Google Images for anything, and there's literally nothing. No construction photos whatsoever. So I find it hard to believe that the park doesn't have something in their files and documents hidden away, even if it's like physical pictures.
Right.
Like there's got to be something. So that's why I reached out to the park and the park manager to try to get something, and couldn't find anything. But who knows? Maybe at some point we'll get those and I can post them on social media. It's not like, and I told them, I was like, I'm not trying to take credit for this. Like, I'll obviously give you full credit for sharing these with me. I just want it to be available for people to see. That's all I care about. So, anyway, so at IAAPA in 2000, which would have been in November, so while the coaster's still under construction, B&M actually unveiled the lead car for Wildfire and had it like in their booth there at the trade show. Again, no photos of this anywhere online. I found somebody that had a blog post that they were there but the photos weren't like, the photos were corrupted or whatever. And so I sent them an email to get some, can I get the photos from you? And, radio silence. Like, everybody just ignored me for the past couple of weeks.
I won't ignore you.
Thanks, I appreciate it. Someday this podcast will get big enough, I'll get some attention.
Someday we'll be big enough that no one can ignore us.
I know.
It's gonna happen.
Someday.
Maybe in, the next life, but...
Construction would be completed in January of 2001, which actually gave 3 months for testing. We talk about Zambezi Zinger just started testing like 3 weeks ago.
Dumb.
Meanwhile, B&M was able to finish this and give them 3 months for testing. That's impressive. I don't know why we can't do that anymore. First rides would be given in March of 2001, including the governor of Missouri, which is really funny. Here's this article. Governor Bob Holden played tourist on Tuesday, taking the first official ride on Silver Dollar City's new $14 million roller coaster, Wildfire. After 3 consecutive spins on the most expensive ride in the theme park's 4-decade history, Holden said it was fantastic. A roller coaster fan, Holden said the ride would be good for tourism statewide. And then it goes on to talk about later, the reason he was part of this, he actually worked at Silver Dollar City when he was younger.
Oh, wow.
So
that's cool.
Yeah, so that was kind of fun. He got to come back to the park and, check out the ride before it opened.
You never know.
This quote from the Silver Dollar City vice president at the time is kind of interesting. He said, Hershend, which is the name of the chain, so he's, part of the Hershend family. Hershend said the ride, which will officially open April 4th, was built to add a new dimension to the theme park, but he doesn't intend to compete with parks specializing in thrill rides. About 70% of the park's 2 million visitors in 2000 were families. Having rides like this adds to the reasons a family can come here and find something for everyone, he said. This is like having a well-rounded menu at a good restaurant. So I found that kind of interesting. Like, literally, their strategy was not, we're going to be the next Cedar Point. It was like, we need to find stuff that the whole family can enjoy, but also still, like, be thrilling to, bring in the teenagers. And I was thinking about that, and I kind of feel like they've kept with that strategy.
They really have, yeah.
Time Traveler is a crazy ride, but it's not, intense.
It's not unbearable.
What I mean? It's not... was it unbearable that he said? It was,
I thought...
Overbearing. That's what it was. Overbearing. That was funny. Both of us, literally, the light bulb went on at the same time.
It's just shared light bulb.
It's not overbearing.
It's not overbearing.
I feel like Outlaw Run may be the most... It's definitely the most intense thing at the park. But Powder Keg is... the launch is pretty intense.
It takes your breath away.
But the rest of the ride is pretty family friendly, I would say.
Very much so.
It's just kind of interesting. I've never thought about the park in that light, but I was like, that kind of makes sense. They really haven't tried to be like, breakneck thrills. It's more about awesome experiences that, most of the family can enjoy, as long as people like roller coasters. So, let's see. Coaster would open to the public on April 4th, 2001 as scheduled and continues to operate to this day. The ride experience is as follows. Also, here's a nice overhead view of the coaster. Trains exit the station and follows a small drop under a bridge, apparently known as the Hoop Dee Doo.
The Hoop Dee Doo.
As it makes a roughly 200-degree right turn, it begins the ascent up the 120-foot tall lift hill.
Which is a long lift hill. I remember how long it took us to get to the top.
Yeah, I don't think it's...
I thought it took a really long time.
No. It's not any longer than a Dominator or a Millennium Force or something. So. At the top of the hill, the train goes down a small pre-drop before making a left turn and flying down the 155-foot first drop at 66 miles per hour. The train enters an Immelman loop that rolls out to the right as it drops to ground level before entering the vertical loop. Immediately following that, the train makes a slight right turn to the left and enters the Cobra Roll. Riders are photographed at the exit of the roll, then the track makes a slight right turn as it crosses over itself before hitting the corkscrew. The ride ends with a low to the ground left turn before jumping up a small hill and into the final brakes.
Where do you find these descriptions, or do you come up with them by yourself?
Some of both. Depends on if someone else has already done the work or if I need to watch the POV and just kind of write it out myself. So
it's impressive.
There you go. Let's see. I've got a few things here, and we'll talk about the story of the ride here in a second. Here's from a newspaper. This was just kind of as the announcement. They had this big spread in the newspaper kind of introducing people to the coaster.
Again, different logo.
Yeah, exactly, right? Another logo. Oh my gosh, every time. I don't understand it. It's so funny.
It's like almost like,
Well, and it's like one thing.
I spy a new logo.
Well, it's one thing if like merchandise has a different logo on it, because I get that. Like when you put merchandise together, you want to mix it up and have different logos. That's fine. But to have the actual ride and the signs in the park have different logos is a strange decision.
That is very strange.
Anyway, so yeah, this is basically showing you the exact same thing I just said. It's just going through the entire layout. It has a little map to show you how to get there because it is difficult to find.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, let's see. Here's a park map. Here's another different logo.
Oh, it's weird.
This is a strange logo. I think this is the one that was actually in the press release when they announced the coaster. Also, why is the coaster gray on the map?
But brown and...
But like red. I don't know. It's very, very weird. This park map is strange. So, all right. Let's talk about the story of the ride. So this is not super well known. I don't think it's well known nowadays just because the line's usually not that long. And the line does kind of tell the story, but usually you just walk right onto the ride as long as
you've told me this story before, but I want to hear it
probably.
Again.
So the experience tells the story of an old Ozarkian inventor, Dr. Horatio Harris, who had an obsession to create a specially powered high-flying contraption for flight across the Ozark Mountains. While Doc Harris' success, or lack thereof, is without official documentation, record of his antics can be found in Silver Dollar City's original authentic newsletters of 25 years ago. As the story goes, Wildfire is the fuel the loopy doctor developed for his ultimate speed machine. So there you go. So that's the story from the official. That's from the park. This is the story of the ride, and you can actually see. So this is like a quote unquote flying machine that's outside the gift shop at the park with Dr. H. Harris on it, and then in the line. Like if you're going through the line, there's all kinds of props and stuff. So you can see here's Horatio Harris, like on this, thing here, chilled wildfire, exhaust vents, and this like big old test tube thing that you walk by regardless if it's a walk on or not. You always walk by this thing. That's supposed to be like the fuel. That's the wildfire fuel is in that big test tube. And then let's see. Here's a shirt from the early days, Master of Flying Machines. So you got the doctor here.
Dude. Why would you wear that?
That's a very strange shirt.
That looks like something Cody would wear.
What?
Cody wears weird shirts.
Okay.
You guys, have you seen his cat shirt?
I have no idea if he still wears that stuff, though. That was in college.
It's true, I guess it's true. Cody, we love you if you're listening.
Also a different logo, but I guess the logo's okay because it's on merchandise at least. You can see it's got the green wildfire fuel in there.
It's a very strange shirt.
I guess when the ride first opened, they actually did have an actor that was like, you could take photos with Dr. Horatio Harris.
I guess that's cool.
So that's kind of fun. So certainly don't do that anymore. But yeah. Also, I will say Wildfire has a big gift shop. Like probably the biggest gift shop out of all the rides.
Whenever in the park. Whenever you guys get on and I usually hang out in that gift shop. And
I'm glad that they built an observation deck for the ride too, because if they didn't, you would see like none of the ride. But they built like this huge observation deck, which makes it really like you can.
That's where they do the Hoop Dee Doo.
Yes, right there at the Hoop Dee Doo. So
no, that's where they do it. It's a dance move.
Oh, I see.
Talked about this.
Haley is set on the fact that the observation deck is for doing the Hoop Dee Doo.
Doing the Hoop Dee Doo. I don't know what it looks like, but that's where they do it. They only do it at night, so no one knows.
When you're going through the queue, you actually will see little sketches like this that are kind of like, I don't know, they're supposed to be like him sketching his ideas for the ride or whatever. And you'll see this one in line, which is kind of interesting because you can look at this and you'll see it's got like Wildfire logo on the front, and there's like this jetpack thing on the back that says Wildfire. So, and it looks like the ride, right? This is not Wildfire at all. This is a copy of Kumba at Busch Gardens, Tampa, that they just threw this sketch together to make it look like Wildfire. But you look at that, if you're an enthusiast, you look at that and you're like, that's Kumba. Because of these interlocking corkscrews that Kumba is very famous for. So, that's funny. Isn't that hilarious? So there's a little Busch Gardens Tampa Easter egg in the queue to Wildfire of all places. Which is really funny. So
that's awesome.
Coaster was really well received among the public and enthusiasts. People that lived in the area around Silver Dollar City really didn't have other rides like this. Six Flags St. Louis had 2 looping coasters, but one of them is terrible. It's literally voted like one of the worst coasters in the country every year. And they do have a B&M inverted coaster there, but it's smaller and slower than Wildfire is. And then Worlds of Fun at the time had Boomerang, which is it's a boomerang, like. And then they had Orient Express, which at this point in its life was really old. It had been around for probably 15 or 20 years at that point, so it was kind of outdated compared to Wildfire. So this was like a really big deal for a lot of people in that area. They had never really ridden a coaster like this before. For enthusiasts, like, you know, if you travel around, obviously this wasn't like a record breaker or anything like that. It wasn't Millennium Force or Superman Ride of Steel, which had been built the year previous. But it was possible that it could be one of the best coasters built in 2001. So Ace actually had an event at Silver Dollar City in May of 2001 to check out the new coaster. I've got an article here talking about that. It says, members of Ace, the American coaster enthusiasts, will be in town May 4th to check out the ride after a stop at Six Flags St. Louis. What's this guy say? It says, we weren't even sure about Wildfire. I just like Silver Dollar City. So I guess when they planned the event, they didn't even know Wildfire was going to be open. It just kind of worked out that way. So it's convenient. Then this quote is just hilarious to me. He goes on to talk about how Ace members don't ride roller coasters that like are risky. Like they want only ride manufacturers that are tried and tested and true. He says, I would say the majority of members are coaster enthusiasts but aren't into just being afraid. We know who builds and designs them. There are so many safety factors involved in the design of the new coasters. To put it bluntly, 95% of all coaster accidents are caused by the stupidity of the rider. In a survey 3 or 4 years ago, more people were hurt riding merry-go-rounds than roller coasters.
Wow.
Which I found kind of interesting.
I wonder if that's true.
It might be. I could definitely see people, not like major injuries, but like people just like trying to get off their horse and they trip and just fall flat on their face.
Broken nose?
Yeah, exactly. I could totally see that happen on merry-go-rounds all the time. Or like people are, because you can stand like next to your kid, right? Well, what if you like take a wrong step and step on the ground and then you like fall off the ride? Like, I don't know.
Well, that's why they make you stand in the middle now.
Yes, that is true. So
one too many fall-offs of the
ground. Yeah. So at the Golden Ticket Awards for 2001, Wildfire debuted at number 28 in the country, or in the world, actually, sorry. Finishing as the 4th best coaster built in 2001. It would finish behind Titan at Six Flags Over Texas in 3rd, Nitro at Six Flags Great Adventure in 2nd, and the very well-known Phantom's Revenge at Kennywood would take the number 1 spot for 2001.
That's my home park.
I mean, I have to agree with that wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
So. Phantom's Revenge is better than Wildfire for sure.
Right.
I guess at some point they started offering on-ride video. So like you could get off the ride and you could buy like a DVD of you riding the ride.
That'd be cool.
So I've got an example because it would splice video of the ride intermixed with video of you riding the ride. So this is kind of what it would look like. This is so early 2000s.
Yep.
So this is where it started, like, this would be you. It's showing you going up the lift hill. So you can kind of see it's, you know, spliced with some video of you and some that's just promotional video from the park.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's kind of a cool idea. So I think it's more interesting than on-ride photos. So.
Well, and I wonder how they would do it with, like, second, third, you know, onward, like the other rows.
Yeah, that's the one thing I couldn't figure out, because here's kind of how I figured out that they did this. Is I was on YouTube just trying to find anything I could, right? I told you I scoured the internet for hours just finding all these, you know, whatever I could about this ride. And I came across so many videos of people filming themselves like this. And I was like, why are there so many of these? And every one I clicked on had these little bits of the, like, the promotional video stuff mixed in between. And I was, like, so confused about it. And I finally figured out, oh, this was a DVD thing that you could buy at the park. Mm. Yeah, so you can see the company CD ride. There you go. So that's, I eventually figured out that's why CD, right? So I eventually figured out that's why there were so many reverse POV videos of Wildfire on YouTube, because people would just get it at the park and then post it on YouTube. And so there's dozens and dozens of them on there. So I don't know if you had to, like, sit in a specific seat. Mm. I would imagine that's probably the easiest way to do it, is you would be like, okay, if you want the DVD, you got to sit in the front row on this side or whatever. But that just seems...
Well, if they bought them, like,
Maybe you have to buy them beforehand, and then, like, you hand them the ticket, and then they, you know, make sure you sit in the right seats or something. Because Hollywood Rip Ride Rocket has that too, but they do it for whatever seat you sit in. So, I don't know, it's kind of interesting. Just thought I'd mention that. Let's see. As we talked about earlier, Wildfire is famous for sunset rides. And it's interesting because a lot of coasters, they talk about, like, night ride, right?
Sunset.
Which the night ride on Wildfire is fine, but sunset rides, that's where it's at, because the sunset is beautiful. This picture right here is the front. That's like the picture when you go on Silver City's website. It's right there.
Honestly, if I went on it again, that'd be the only reason why.
To go on Sunset. I think when we went to Moonlight Madness, we tried to do that, and the line was an hour long for Wildfire, which is crazy because usually it's a walk-on. So it's definitely, people understand that, like, sunset is the time to go and ride this coaster, because it is just absolutely gorgeous. So, and, like, the sunsets, even if you're on the observation deck, the sun sets behind the coaster, which really makes for perfect photo ops. Like, it's perfect. Mm-hmm. So it's very, very pretty. Now, I've thought a lot about, like, Wildfire versus Kumba versus Incredible Hulk, because Kumba and Incredible Hulk both are in the top 100 in the CoasterBot ratings and get a lot of praise from enthusiasts, and Wildfire kind of gets forgotten. So I was like, why is that? And so I kind of, like, just dove into, like, the differences here, which I'm not going to read all of this because this is, you know, me being a data analytics person and putting this together. But I'll post this if you want to look at all the stats. And essentially, Wildfire is shorter than both of them and has less inversions than both of them. And then Incredible Hulk also has a launch, which is cool. So those kind of mixed, you know, together kind of end up being the reason why Wildfire just doesn't get as much credit, I think. So also, Incredible Hulk has had a complete retrack in 2016, so it's running smoother than ever right now. So, which Wildfire could use.
That's true.
And I've heard Kumba could actually use it too. I've heard Kumba is getting a little rough. There's actually rumors last year that Kumba was going to get torn down, but that seems to be a false rumor at this point. The other interesting thing is Wildfire is, at Silver Dollar City, is not the best Wildfire coaster, the best coaster named Wildfire in the world. Because, I actually didn't write down the year. It was pretty recent, within the last probably 5 or 6 years, that Wildfire at Kolmarden in Sweden would be constructed by RMC, which a lot of people consider this to be one of the best wooden coasters in the entire world. It looks
fantastic.
It looks so good. This is at a zoo. This is at a zoo. There's this zoo that I don't even know if... I think this is the only roller coaster they have, and they just decided to go nuts and build this crazy thing.
I like the zoo.
This coaster has a crazy story in and of itself, and since we don't really do European coasters, I guess I can briefly tell the story. Basically, when they filed for the building permits for this ride, they thought they had them all in a row. They thought everything was all set up, and they started construction. They finished the ride, and almost right before it was going to open, the government looked at the building permits and said, "You didn't file this right." And there was literally a few months where they thought they were going to have to tear the coaster down after they had built it.
Oh my gosh!
But they
that would have been
that would have been terrible. But they got it sorted out. Everything was okay, and they were able to open it, and So there's obviously a lot more to that story than that we, maybe if we start doing a European coaster someday, we'll, dive into that story.
But first.
That is true. Don't tempt me.
I'm tempted.
But,
I'm definitely tempting.
That would be very fun.
As long as we can go do other stuff other than amusement parks too, I'm down.
Yeah. So it gets confusing when you say Wildfire is my favorite coaster. And you're like, really? And then you're like, oh, they're talking about the one in Sweden, not the one in Silver Dollar City. So, Wildfire's been used for marketing purposes at Silver Dollar City, obviously for dozens and dozens of times. They have Wildfire Taffy at the candy store, which is their spicy cinnamon one. There's the Wildfire Burger at the Lumberjack. And as I'm sure you're looking at here, they had a mini horse that was born a few years ago that they named Wildfire, and is at the Silver Dollar City Petting Zoo.
He's so cute.
I actually think it's a she. I think it's a girl that they.
Is it?
Yeah. So.
I can't tell from pictures.
So. Yeah. Well, and this post here doesn't really make it that obvious, but based on what I saw, I'm pretty sure it's a she. That Wildfire at the petting zoo there. So, but even recently, they recently won the USA Today Best Theme Park Award for 2001. And if you look at the image that they posted for the award, it actually shows Wildfire in the background instead of all the other coasters that are there, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, it's a very picturesque coaster, which I think lends itself to more popularity just because of how picturesque and how beautiful it is to take pictures of. So this image is very strange, though. If you're going to say, show me a picture of all the best parts of Silver Dollar City, this image is like...
That's not what I would put. Not by a long shot.
The only ride in here, it shows Rivertown, so it's kind of hinting at Mystic River, but Mystic River is not in this picture. The only ride is Wildfire. And there's sprinklers and a few actors.
A sign for the cinnamon bread.
I guess. And a guy eating a funnel cake. So
what's this? Is that that's the barbecue place?
That's the barbecue place in the background there.
Interesting.
Yeah, this is a very interesting promotional image. So, let's see. Do I have anything else here? I think that's it. Yep. So, that is the history of Wildfire at Silver Dollar City, as much as I could pull together without, other people getting me the information I wanted. But like I said, if I do get info from the park or images or anything else, I'll obviously post those to social media for you guys to see.
That'd be cool.
I just thought I'd share my thoughts on Wildfire just briefly before the episode ended.
I kind of shared mine, so you should share yours.
Yeah, this coaster is an interesting one for me because if you guys don't know, I told the story of how I became a coaster enthusiast in our very first episode, but essentially I was terrified of roller coasters until I was 16. I think it was 16. When I first went on, I went with friends to Silver Dollar City and they convinced me to ride Outlaw Run. And I realized I wasn't as scared. My fear of roller coasters was unwarranted. I actually enjoyed it and I rode everything else that day too. But up until that point, I loved going and watching Wildfire. I was terrified to ride it. I never got on it, even though my dad tried to get me to go on it dozens of times because it was his favorite ride at the park. But I loved watching it and, just sitting on that observation deck and just, impressed with the, all the engineering that went behind it and just, how much fun it was to watch it and how impressive it is. So the coaster kind of has a special place in my heart as like, even as someone that was scared of roller coasters, I still enjoyed watching it and eventually getting on it to ride it. And yeah, I know it's not the best roller coaster in the park nowadays, but I do think it kind of set the park on a trajectory of being a thrill park. Because from that point on, they would build Powder Keg and then Outlaw Run and then Time Traveler, like building bigger and better coasters. And obviously, the new coaster that's going to be coming next year probably. So please. Hopefully.
Please.
It better be.
Please.
So Wildfire just kind of was a huge turning point for Silver Dollar City, I think. I think it changed it from just a local amusement park to a national destination for coaster enthusiasts, and it has become even more so in the 20 years since then. So, but yeah, so that's all I have to say about Wildfire. Anything else to add?
I don't think so. Covered it.
Well, thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of the podcast. If you like that episode, be sure to leave us a 5-star rating on Spotify or wherever you might be listening. Helps people find the podcast in the future and helps us keep making great content for you guys. And we really appreciate it. I know some of you have already done that, and we appreciate the 5-star ratings. So be sure to go and follow us on social media. Like I said, you can go and see the images I was able to scrounge up about, from the Wildfire. And you can see some of the stuff I was showing Haley throughout the episode today. And yeah, we'll have some trip reports coming in the coming weeks. So if you follow us on Spotify or wherever you might be listening, you'll be alerted and notified whenever we post those trip reports. So you can go and check those out too. And I will give a little teaser here. I've got an incredible story about Lightning Rod. I have a really awesome story about Lightning. You know the story. Oh,
yeah, I do.
I was going to say, you looked at me like, what are you talking about?
What story?
You know the story.
I do know the story.
So if you want to hear
it's worth it.
You want to hear a story about Lightning Rod, check out the Dollywood Trip Report that's going to come out next week, because it is quite the story.
It's insane. It's worth it. Come listen.
Well, thank you for tuning in to this episode of the podcast, and we will see you in the next one.